Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of What If Naruto Became the Surgeon of Death. If you enjoy the video then like, share and subscribe, and also comment your thoughts as it inspires me to make more such videos, and remember to check out my playlist section for other interesting stories. So let's get started. Chapter 3, Pre-Exam Events. Naruto was in his office sitting down and updating his logbook as he smiled to himself. He had just went and made a house call to a young boy no older than 5 years old who had traveled by himself for several days to find him. His mother had fallen ill, and the doctor they had was not sure exactly what was wrong with her. He had tried to do what he could, but it wasn't good enough, and he had told the boy that she was most likely going to die. And as to be expected from such a young child when they hear such grave news, the boy cried over the fact that he would lose his only parent since his father had died in a mine collapse a year earlier. One of the other patients in the clinic had offhandedly mentioned Naruto as the miracle maker that the world knew his as, and how he could easily heal her if he was here to do so. The boy heard what the man had to say and was immediately out the door, and soon the town itself in search of Naruto. But even though the town he hailed from was not that far from the spring capital, it was just that he was young and had a terrible sense of direction, so it took longer than it should. The boy had finally gotten the proper directions from an elderly man who himself was heading to meet Naruto for some medical help, and so he finally made it to his intended destination with the man's help. Once there, Naruto helped the elderly man first, who was having back issues that were quite easy to fix. Once the man was healthy and gone, he asked the boy about what exactly he needed. The boy explained that his mother was sick and the doctor was unsure as to why, and so could not heal her from what ailed her. The kid opened his bag and dumped out a few rocks that were shining blue as payment, since he believed that they were valuable and he had nothing else to offer up as payment. Naruto took one in his hand and quickly conjured up a lead container to put them in. He asked the kid where he had gotten the rocks, which the boy explained that they were mined in the tunnels that his father worked in no too long ago. Naruto explained to the young boy that the rocks were glowing because of radioactivity, and they were most likely the reason that his mother was sick. The shinobi world was unaware of such things, and to be quite honest, Naruto was glad about it, since if they somehow managed to find a means to weaponize it as people had done long ago according to Faust, the world would literally be set on fire, since they would be used by one village or another to obliterate another. He saw that the boy was confused by that word, so he explained that the rocks were poisonous in the sense that being around it made you sick in a manner that doctors could not heal. He had seen the looks of worry on the boy's face, but had quelled his fear by telling the boy that he had the means to heal her, and went to go and get what he needed to heal her. Once all essentials were gathered, he piggybacked the boy back to his home, since he was faster, as well as had a better sense of direction entirely. Once he got there, he told the boy to remain out of the house, and to remain so no matter what he heard. The boy had nodded his head in understanding. Naruto had to decontaminate her of the radiation before he could operate on her in his operating room. He injected her with the serum to begin the process, after warning her that it would hurt like hell. Once the medicine entered her body, she began to scream out in pain as she felt like her body was bathed in liquid magma. Her screams echoed through the town, which caused many people to come to her aid, but the boy was there to stop them from entering on the orders of Naruto himself. The medicine essentially made the radiation that had seeped deep into her body crawl to the surface. From there, Naruto was able to simply drain it out. Once she was fully decontaminated, he took her into the operating room, and once there he was able to remove as well as replace the damaged tissue on the organs within her. In no time at all she was healthy and ready to continue living like she had never been sick to begin with. Once healed, he gave her 2 weeks' worth of medicine to help her fully recover from any lingering effects. She had been thankful for him helping her, but was concerned since she had no money to pay for his services. Naruto was infamously known as one who made his patients pay in either cash or their lives, and she unfortunately did not have the cash. Naruto simply smirked at her and told her not to worry, since he was not charging her for this. She asked him why, and he told her simply that he had lost his mother when he was 5 years old and was alone in the world. He didn't want the boy to suffer the same fate, so he had healed her, but he warned her that he had a reputation to uphold, so tell people that she paid him or else he would be back. As he left, he told the boy that his mother would be okay, But before he left he asked for the rest of the shiny rocks so as to dispose of them properly so no one else got hurt. It took a bit, but the boy gave him all the rocks, and thanked him for helping his mother. Naruto took the rocks, and used his powers to grind them into a fine powder. For quite some time, he had been working on a poison for an opponent he would face in the future. And while many would think that it was Minato, he made it was not, since it was intended for another opponent entirely. He was missing the one piece to perfect it, and the radioactive stones had been just the thing to finish his deadly concoction. And now that it was completed, he put it in a special syringe, and placed it in a special container that he then put into the freezer so as to preserve it. Once he finished up his little side project, he had returned home, and as such events had caught up to the present. Naruto had been waiting patiently for the reply from the Tsukikage, and he was not disappointed in his long wait since the note finally came. Onoki had agreed to his terms and requested that he arrive in Iwa as soon as possible so that they could speak about the plans for the upcoming Chunin exam they would be helping with. Naruto smiled as he told Yuna to mind the place and to let people know he was going to be gone for a while. He then pulled out a small stack of bills so that she could buy what she needed in his absence. Then he went home and told Haku that they were heading out to Iwa, and as he announced that he conjured up the door to his operating room as per usual, and they walked through it. They stayed in the operating room for a few minutes, which wasn't really necessary at all since it only took 15 seconds for him to summon another door. Haku simply took this moment to kiss him passionately while they were alone, but in the end they stopped and stepped through the door that opened up not too far from Iwa itself. The guards on duty at the front gate saw the door appear and smiled since they knew who exactly it was that had made it appear in the first place. Naruto had a standing agreement with Onoki, which was simply to never use the door to infiltrate the village, and he had free passage into the village whenever he wanted as long as he used the front door to do so. And to this day Naruto had done as asked, since in all honesty he had no need to sneak into the village at all. He was not a spy for anyone since he was a neutral party in the politics of the world, being a doctor instead of a shinobi to any village. He only ever came to the villages to heal people incapable of coming to him as well as to buy medicinal ingredients. Naruto walked towards the guards as he twirled his cane in his hand, where he then handed one of them the scroll given to him and continued to walk towards the cage's office. Along the way he waved at the people who saw him as he walked towards his destination. A few people asked for his medical help, which he said he would, but as per usual it would cost them. But eventually he and Haku made it to their destination, where they saw Onoki smoking on a pipe. Naruto had prescribed his some medicinal herbs that were meant to be smoked so as to calm and relax the one who smoked them. This helped him to relax his body, as well as clear his mind, so as to think clearly and not stress himself, so as to screw up his back again. "Hello Gramps," said Naruto as he walked into the room. He used his wires to pull out 2 chairs which he as well as Haku sat down on. "Hello Naruto," said Onoki as he tapped the ashes of his pipe into a small tray that he used to collect them. He was far too calm to respond to the Gramps' remarks since Naruto always made it towards him. Naruto respected him to listen to his rules when in the village, and that was good enough for him. Plus the herbs he smoked made it nearly impossible to feel anger for a while after he smoked them, so there was that too. "So we are here as requested," said Naruto with a smile. He had always respected Onoki since he had first met the man, since he was willing to put himself in harm's way to protect his family. He already lost his children, and so he took it upon himself to raise their daughter as best he can so she could grow strong and defeat anyone who would come after her in the future. "So where is our squad mate at right now?" "Ah," said Onoki with a smirk, "she should be here shortly. I had one of my men tell her to come here not too long ago." And as if right on cue, Kuretsuchi walked into the room fully dressed in genin shinobi gear, as well as a pack filled with essentials for the trip to Konoha. "I'm here and ready to go," said Kuretsuchi, who was giddy inside over the fact that she would be traveling with her crush and made plans to make a move on him during the trip. If all went as planned, she would acquire him as a boyfriend, and nothing would stop her. "Has Akatsuchi gotten packed yet? I don't see him here ready to go." "Well, about that," started Onoki with a bit of a nervous chuckle. He had never gotten around to explaining that Naruto was in a relationship, so her plans to try and snag him into one for herself were not possible. He will not be accompanying you for these chunin exams. So who is our third member? Asked Kuretsuchi with a raised eyebrow. She had already known that their third member was being replaced by Naruto, which didn't bother her so much, but to hear that the second one was being replaced as well came as a surprise. Hello there, said Haku, as she stood up and faced her before she politely bowed. My name is Haku Momoki. Nice to meet you, Haku, said Kuretsuchi with a smile as she bowed as well. Now while on the outside she seemed happy about this, on the inside she was absolutely livid. The plan was to try and seduce Naruto on the way to Konoha, and it would have been easy since the third person was supposed to be a male, and now it was not. For all she knew, this bitch was trying to make a move on her man, and she would be damned if she let this pretty little bitch get what was hers. Haku saw the rage that was in her eyes as she made an educated guess on why exactly they had that in the first place. She knew that Kuretsuchi was in love with her boyfriend, and was probably planning on trying to seduce him on this trip. Haku could only smirk as she saw this since Naruto was already her boyfriend and this bitch could deal with it. So now that you ladies have gotten acquainted as such, said Naruto as he clapped his hands together and stood up from his seat, I am going to spend the day healing people while I am in town. Shouldn't we be heading out towards Konoha? Asked Kuretsuchi in confusion. She was unaware of his ability to conjure doors so as to fast travel all over the elemental countries. People knew he had such an ability, since he was not hiding it from people. He just didn't tell everyone he met, and the only people who knew he was able to do so were his patients. If we wish to make it in time, we need to leave by tonight. Not really, said Naruto, since I can easily get us there in about 15 minutes. How? Asked Kuretsuchi with a look of shock on her face, since she had only ever known one person who could do something like that, and Naruto was not Minato Namikaze, so he was not capable of teleporting as far as she knew. I have my ways, said Naruto with a shrug. Gramps there knows how I can. So it's a bit surprising that you don't know about it. But you'll just have to wait until tomorrow for that. So Gramps, is the usual room available? I have notified the hotel in advance so they know that you are coming, said Onoki with a smile. Every time Naruto came to Iwa, he stayed in the same room so that people knew where to find him while there. It wasn't their best room, but Naruto didn't really care for that kind of thing. He had grown up poor, so the room he was able to reserve was good enough for him. Even thought there was a single bed. Naruto was used to sleeping with Haku, so it was not a problem. Good, said Naruto with a goofy grin. Now if you will excuse me, I have some money to make and people to help while I'm here. So let's meet up at the front gate at 9 in the morning. That way we can eat breakfast before we head out towards Konoha. And as he said that, he walked out of the room to do as he said. Haku followed suit since she was going to do a bit of shopping while here, since she had not been in one of the major villages in her lifetime and thought to take the opportunity to shop around while here. As they both left, Kuretsuchi groaned to herself since she had gotten up early to pack her stuff she would need, only to find out they weren't even leaving until tomorrow, so she had more time than she expected. But the groans quickly turned to growls as her eye twitched at the idea of another woman trying to take what she deemed as hers. She looked at her grandfather with anger in her eyes since he had not told her about the women when the plans for the Chunin exam came up, and she was going to be fairly vocal about it. Several hours later, Naruto had done as he said he would do and visited the people who needed medical attention and healed them. Lucky for him, there was not anyone who needed major surgery. They just wanted his help since he could heal things that took months to heal from in hours. So once all those who needed help were healed, and the money owed was paid, Naruto made his way to the room that the hotel reserved for him. It was there that he was gifted a sight that he would not soon forget. Haku was there in sexy lingerie as she had waited for him. Apparently, she was tired of him not reacting to her subtle advances, and was just going to be blunt about it and take what she wanted from him. Plus the fact that she had seen another woman want her boyfriend for herself, and she knew that she needed to stake her claim, so to speak. So within moments of Naruto entering the room, she latched her lips onto his own. Mere moments after that, she had all but figuratively ripped his clothes off his body to get at the part she was lusting after, and when she saw it with her own eyes, she was shocked at what she saw. His dick was fairly big and thick as hell, and the mere sight of it made her even wetter than she already was from fingering herself as she waited for him to come back to the room for the night. It was hard to believe one of his size existed, but the man was a miracle worker, so he probably enhanced himself using his abilities as well as his medical expertise, and honestly she didn't care if he did since the end results were very satisfying to her. Naruto had to honestly admit to himself over time that he was fairly oblivious when it came to women. Sure, he fell in love with Haku, but his mind was usually thinking about such things like various means to heal people, rare medicinal herbs and where to acquire them as well as their use, and a small part of his mind was consumed in rage against the very people who had ruined his childhood and taken his happiness away in his youth. This did not leave him with a lot of time to think on such things like the pleasures of the flesh, but right now that was all he could think about as Haku slowly, yet very sensually took off what little she had on before she laid on the bed, and beckoned him towards her with a single finger. While this was happening, Kuretsuchi had snuck into the hotel past the night shift crew, which was easy seeing that there was not many of them. She had come this night in an attempt to make her move on Naruto so that the bitch he came with would back the fuck off of her man once she laid claim to him with her body. Sure, she would have liked to have taken this whole relationship slower with dates and getting to know the man before she fucked his brains out, but the variable that was this strange woman forced her hand and she had to make her move now or never. She blushed to herself as she thought about what she was about to do, as a bit of fluids began to leak from her precious place in anticipation. She had bought some skimpy underwear for this very occasion that barely covered anything, and she knew that one look at her fabulous body, and Naruto would be hers. As she finally made it to his room, she took out a lockpick and began to pick the lock to the door since it was late at night, and she was not expected at this hour. She was just glad that the woman who came with him was in another room altogether and that she herself had been in this room while Naruto was here since he had treated her here from a few cuts and bruises. But as she finally managed to pick the lock and slowly as well as quietly opened the door, she heard something that sounded like a thud against the wall. Kuretsuchi quietly walked in and closed the door behind her as she made her way past the sitting room. Turning round, I noticed the light coming from the crack around the edges of Jake's bedroom door. She crept across the room as quietly as she possibly could and stood silently outside the door to the bedroom itself. Turning her head, she brought her left ear close to the door and listened to what was behind it. At first she heard nothing, but then a few seconds later there was an unmistakable groan. Kuretsuchi knew that sound all too well. She had been doing enough of them herself over the last few days as she pleasured herself to the thoughts of Naruto becoming hers. Again a few seconds later, she heard the groan sound from within Naruto's room. She listened more intently now since she was truly hoping that she was just hearing things, and it was not what it seemed. She could hear heavy breathing and a gentle tap of something on the wall in the room. A few quiet moments went by, then she heard Haku, whose voice she could easily recognize in a low deep moaning voice say, "Oh fuck. Eat me." Kuretsuchi took a step back from the door, as she heard that, and felt her heart jump a beat. They were fucking. She was too late. Creeping back against the door, but being careful not to press against it and alert them that she was there, Kuretsuchi continued to listen to them. Haku continued to breathe, so loud that Kuretsuchi could hear every intake and exhale. Her groans of pleasure grew louder and more frequent with every passing second. "Eat me, Naruto." She pictured the scene behind this door. Her Naruto with his face buried between that young girl's legs, his mouth and tongue lapping at her young cunt, probing deep inside it. Haku lying there with her legs open looking down at Naruto as he sucked and licked her. He should be doing those things to her, not that bitch in the room. "Oh Naruto. That's so good," she again groaned out in pleasure. This went on for several minutes, all of which made Kuretsuchi blush as she just stood there and listened for reasons that she could not fully understand. The moans kept getting louder and the sounds of breathing even deeper as she just stood there and felt her body get hotter as she continued to just listen. "Shove your fingers in me, Naruto." Kuretsuchi felt a huge rush of excitement shoot through her whole body for some unknown reason as she listened to Haku telling Naruto what she wanted, then uich. It was the kind of groan that only someone in the midst of sex would make a deep, hard, satisfying sound. Standing there and finally feeling too hot and bothered from what she was hearing, she let her hands wander under her shirt, and then over her breasts and started to pinch on her nipples. Her pussy was getting wet, and she was without a doubt getting turned on listening to this. After several moments of listening to Haku being pleasured by Naruto's clearly talented fingers and tongue, Kuretsuchi again heard her voice, breathless and low, but it was clear and unmistakable. Naruto. I want your big cock. Kuretsuchi's eyes widened and without thinking about it, she cupped both her hands around her breasts and squashed them together. She listened intently as the creaking of the bed and noise of them moving around wafted from the room even through the closed door. You want it hard, baby, said Naruto. Yeah, Naruto, fuck my little pussy hard. Show me how much of a man you really are. Oh yeah. I will, babe. Yeah. Do it good. Fill me up with your big cock. Oh, I love it when you talk like that. Kuretsuchi just stood there listening to the pair of them as Haku took Naruto inside her. Within seconds her groans had turned into muffled screams. Clearly either Haku or Naruto had their hands over her mouth muffling the cries of pleasure that threatened to get out. Oh yeah, baby. Take my cock, Naruto moaned out. Kuretsuchi's mind went crazy listening to the sounds from behind that door. Naruto was right now between that girl's legs, pushing that huge cock, which she could only imagine just how jiff it was in her mind inside her, filling her young pussy with his enormous fucker. Her pussy was on fire and she had to reach her hands under her clothes and started playing with her wet cunt. The sounds from within the room grew louder and harder by the second. She could hear their bodies slapping together, the sound of the bed knocking rhythmically against the wall. Haku clearly had her mouth still covered, but the screams of pleasure just grew more intense even with her mouth covered. Occasionally Kuretsuchi would hear Naruto quietly say something to her like "Oh fuck your pussy is so tight baby," or "Take my cock deep." The loud slapping noises just grew louder and the pace of their fucking was clearly intense by this point. The knocking of the bed on the wall got quicker as Naruto fucked Haku harder. If she was able to hear this clearly from the door that was on the opposite end of the bedroom, she could only wonder what someone in the next hotel room over was hearing, and could only hope that there was no one there at the moment to complain about it. Outside the closed door Kuretsuchi was becoming erect. She was half bent over with her hand probing deep up her now sopping wet pussy. She had to hold her other hand over her mouth to try to stop any noises from escaping. Her heartbeat raced, and her breathing had become very irregular. She felt lightheaded, as though she was floating along on a cloud. In her mind she was imagining what was happening in that room. Naruto banging his whole cock inside that girl's pussy, giving her the damn good fucking that Kuretsuchi was now so very desperate for. Gonna come baby? Where do you want it? Come inside me. Fill me up so that I can feel you inside me all night. Kuretsuchi heard Naruto groan out, coupled with the sounds of the furious slapping of bodies as his thrust got faster as he was close to finishing. And just as quickly as the rapid thrusts started, they just abruptly stopped as she heard Haku moan as her pussy was filled like she wanted to be. Oh fuck cccckkk. She pounded her fingers up her pussy hard and fast as she listened to Naruto moaning in ecstasy, shooting his load from his balls into the bitch who stole her man. She wondered if he had just fired his spunk over Haku, or if he had blown his entire load inside her. She felt her legs get very weak, and could feel her pussy contracting around her fingers. Her insides filled with her juices, and she practically gushed a puddle onto the floor. Inside the room the sounds of heavy breathing continued, and she could still make out Haku's muffled groans as Naruto continued to pound into her. At this point Kuretsuchi was not able to stand this anymore and quietly made her way out of the hotel room, since if she stayed any more then she would break the door down and essentially have her way with Naruto no matter what that bitch Haku said or even did. And even though Haku had gotten Naruto to sleep with her first, she would still win his heart one way or another, since she had a few tricks up her sleeve. The next morning, Naruto and Haku were already at the front gate of Iwa when Onoki and his granddaughter arrived themselves. Kuretsuchi's eye twitched as she saw Haku practically glowing as she stood there with a smile on her face, since she was in a fairly good mood today. So where is the person who will play the part of our Jonin instructor, said Naruto, while air quoting that last bit. Well, my initial idea was to have Han or Roshi do it, said Onoki with a sigh, since it had been his first idea, but recent events had made him think otherwise. But I don't trust those in Konoha to not already know of their status as Jinchuriki and try and capture them while there. I am not going to just hand over what villages kill people for so easily. Now while the world thought that Iwa was a village that hated their Jinchuriki like they were made to believe, that was the furthest thing from the truth. Their so-called hatred for both Han and Roshi was an elaborate cover story, the likes that had fooled the rest of the villages. They made it seem this way so that those who tried to offer them a better life were tricked and captured, so that they would know just who were the ones to send them in the first place, so to eliminate the threat at its source. And so far this tactic had worked, as the two of them stuck to themselves, and had gotten strong in as they trained in isolation to sell the lie of hatred to others. "So who is our chaperone?" asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. "That would be Eagle here," said Onoki as a masked Anbu appeared next to them and politely bowed. "Hey Brian," said Naruto casually, which made Onoki look shocked since an Anbu's identity were kept secret to all but their commander, and the cage of their respective village. So to hear someone who didn't even live in the village know one of their identities was a bit unsettling. "How do you know who this man is?" asked Onoki in all seriousness, since he hoped that this was not going to become a major issue in the future. "Simple," said Naruto with a shrug of his shoulders. "He was one of my patients here in the past. I have an eidetic memory when it comes to all my patients. I can't afford to forget a face in my line of business, since the medicine I prescribe to a lot of people is something that I alone know how to make. I plan to teach others such things in the future, but that's another thing altogether. So how many of my Anbu members do you know the identities of?" "Honestly," said Naruto as he thought hard about it, "I have no idea. It's not like they tell me that they are one, I just recognize the body type, hair, and skin color to identify them. You don't have to worry about me divulging such things, since I am no shinobi, I'm just a doctor, and I keep confidentiality quite seriously since I have a reputation to uphold. I respect the rules of the places I go, but I personally don't care for politics and stay out of such things, since I am essentially a nomadic doctor who helps all who are willing to pay me for my services." "Well, as long as that remains true, then I have no problem," said Onoki as he breathed a sigh of relief. "So now please keep my granddaughter safe from those who will most likely try and kidnap her." "It shouldn't be a problem," said Naruto with a bit of a chuckle, "when those who would even attempt to do such a thing hear that the infamous surgeon of death is in the village, well, their eyes will all be on me, and I expect no less than 3 attempts to either convince me to join their village or just straight up kidnapping. Kuretsuchi will be safe as long as I am around." "Of that do you give your word?" asked Onoki with a smirk. "You have my word, Gramps," said Naruto with a smirk on his own face. "You know me all too well to cast any doubt on the matter." "That I do indeed," said Onoki, "so you should be on your way." "You still haven't explained how we are going to get to Konoha so quickly," said Kuretsuchi, since she was still wondering how they were going to get there. "It takes at least 3 days of running to get to the village, and we are a day late in leaving." "Well, we will simply walk through this door," said Naruto as a door materialized out of thin air in front of them. Out of the group, only Kuretsuchi was surprised by this, since she had never seen this ability before. "Once through, we only need to wait about 15 minutes, and then I can summon another one near Konoha, since I have been there before." "So you mean to tell me that you have a means of teleporting long distances, like Minato from Konoha is capable of?" "In a way, yes," said Naruto with a quick shrug of his shoulders, since he had heard this before from a few other people who had seen him use this ability. "But while he is able to teleport fast and kill people with his Hiroshin Jutsu, I am only able to transport people into my operating room and then to anywhere I have been before. Sure, I have the advantage of not needing seals of any sort like he does, but my ability needs a bit of time to recharge between uses, so it's not really a thing that I use to fight people with." "Oh," was all she could say, since it made perfect sense to her once it was explained like that. "This ability is mainly to get those hurt to my personal operating room, so it's no surprise that there is a bit of a drawback on its use. Most operations take about 20 minutes anyway, so I don't see it as a problem of any sort." "Okay," said Kuretsuchi with a sigh, "you made your point already, so there is no need to continue explaining it to me." "Well then," said Naruto, who pulled the door open and held it for them all to enter, "shall we be on our way?" The group all entered the operating room through the doorway, and once inside, the door vanished from sight, leaving Onoki standing there with a smile on his face, since he knew that his granddaughter was in safe hands. 1 hour later, Konoha. Minato was sitting in his office as he had just finished up speaking to the various shinobi who would be in charge of security for the duration of the Chunin exam. He had just finished up all the proper paperwork that went with it, and was just about to head out to do some last-minute training with his daughter when one of his shinobi rushed into the room right as he stood up to leave it. "Lord Hokage," said the man as he kneeled in front of Minato, "I come bearing news." "Speak," said Minato since he was genuinely curious as to what the man had to say. "The Surgeon of Death has entered the village." This news caused Minato's eyes to widen in surprise. For quite some time he had given his shinobi the order to try and convince said surgeon to join their village through either brute force or convincing. All the other villages were doing so, or at least they were the last time he checked. So he didn't feel in the wrong ordering his shinobi to do such a thing. He had Danzo try and capture him with the root forces he let the man use in the shadows, but even they failed to capture the man. Minato truly wondered if that was one of the main reasons that Naruto never came to Konoha for business as he did the other villages, but he was unsure of that. Now that the little brat was in his village, he would do all that he could to make him stay since the abilities to heal diseases deemed incurable as well as a bloodline that was so rare that Naruto was the only one to have it was not a thing he would allow to slip through his fingers. And as he dismissed the shinobi from his room, he used his intercom to have his secretary call in a specific shinobi for his plan. Outside, Naruto had separated himself from the other 3 people in his squad shortly upon entering the village, and was at the moment walking down the street to find a specific store he hoped was still here from his youth since if it wasn't he would have to find another to get what he wanted. As Naruto walked calmly down the main street, the memories of this place flooded his mind, and unfortunately his memories were about 95% bad. While on the outside he appeared to be having a good day as he twirled his cane, on the inside he was seething as the rage built up within him. One day soon, he would make those who ruined his childhood pay for what they have done. But eventually he found the store he was looking for, which happened to be a florist store. He went inside and had to suppress even more rage as he saw one of those on his everlasting shit list manning the counter. Ino. This bitch had screwed with him in his youth in such a way that affected him until he was 9 years old. She used her family's signature jutsu to enter his mind and screw with it in a way he could not defend against. Her mental attacks caused him nightmares of Ino's making that horrified him, but his mother had always been there to pull him from the darkness of his own mind. When she died there was no such help, and Naruto struggled to keep his sanity until the day he left. It was thanks to Faust that medicine was made to help him clear his mind when he was 9 so that he could finally have a good night's rest other than the usual nightmares that haunted him. He was finally able to dream of the good times he had with his mother, and it helped drive him forward to excel in his abilities. He would make Ino pay for her specific type of pain towards him, and he had the perfect means to do so. So right now he walked up to the counter and ordered a dozen daisies. He paid for his order of flowers without issue since Ino didn't really want to talk since she was having a bad day since her plans to try and get Sasuke to notice her were not going as planned, and now she had to mind the family store. Naruto took the flowers and began to walk towards the cemetery with them in hand. It may seem strange to see that the clan heirs did not recognize him at all from the past, but times had changed him for the better. When he was a child his hair had been long, unkempt as well as ragged. His clothes were nothing more than patched together rags, and he was not one with a positive attitude since he was constantly put down by the other children who were his age. Now he was the complete opposite of his past self, and he had a much better self-image of himself now as he dressed better, and took better care of himself. Naruto smiled to himself as he neared his destination since he felt like he was at peace. Over the years there had been a deep feeling to return to this village to properly say his goodbyes to his mother proper, but he feared what the village would do with him in the village since he had such an infamous reputation that many villages tried to obtain into their ranks. He knew very little about his mother personally since he only had so little time with her, but her journal which he kept to this day, seeing that it was the only thing that he had of hers anymore, told him much about her that he never got to ask her. Daisies were her favorite flower, which had pissed off her family since they were the upper crust of the higher-ups within Fire Country, and only enjoyed the most expensive of things. So to see one of their own like the one of inferior of the flowers pissed them off. Their family was taught from an early age that either you thought the same way as the rest of them, or you were punished by the head of the household. Her own childhood had been hard as well since she was in a very abusive family, and it was because she refused to think like them that they were planning to marry her off to a man who was twice her age so that she would at least be useful to them by unifying the families together. So Naruto understood why she ran away to the man who had saved her, since in her mind her savior was a better man than that. What made it worse was the act that the man was a well-known sexist man who had been married a few times before. Yet his wives had all mysteriously disappeared in time before they could tell anyone of the horrors they suffered by his hand. He knew this last part since the man himself had been one of his patients and Naruto tortured him in his operating room as he made the man admit to all this while under the knife. That man never made it out alive from the table, and while he was a doctor and they took a Hippocratic oath to do no harm, he was the surgeon of death and had not done so. He then disposed of the man's entire body, as well as his organs. While he would usually keep the organs for future transplants, but he could not in good faith allow so much as a single cell of that filth of a man survive in any sense. Naruto had finally arrived at his mother's grave, which was the same as it had been all those years ago. All it had was her name and year of death, since no one really knew her enough to fill in the blanks. "Hello mother," said Naruto with a sad smile on his face as he set the daisies on the ground in front of her tombstone. "It's good to see you again after so long. I know I didn't say goodbye to you when I left, and for that I am sorry." Naruto sat down in front of his mother's grave and began to talk to it. He spoke of his adventures as well as his dreams for the future. He spent 3 hours there, and they filled his heart with joy as he was finally getting the closure that his spirit so desperately needed. When he was finally done, he said one final prayer to her before he got back to his feet. "I always remember the song you sang to me to calm me down when I had a nightmare," said Naruto as his eyes began to water at the memory of those nights, "and it is only fair that I sing it to you while you sleep as you did for me." As he stood there, the memories of those nights came to the forefront of his mind. His sleep was troubled in his youth thanks to Ino, since she basically injected nightmares into his head that he was forced to suffer through. His mother had been the one to help relax him when she sang the same song her own uncle had sang to her in her own youth with her own nightmares. According to him, it was a song that he had heard from his father and so on since the time before the shinobi came to be and the land was in the warring era. Naruto then began to sing the song that his mother had told him was sung to her by an uncle of hers that passed away when she was fairly young. "Leaves from the vine, falling so slow, like fragile tiny shells, drifting in the foam. Little soldier boy, come marching home. Brave soldier boy, comes marching home." It was as he finished the song that he fell to his knees in sadness, since he could not contain the tears he was holding back for years anymore. They flowed heavily from his eyes and fell off his face and hit the ground. "If only I could have saved you," whispered Naruto as his hands tightened into fists, and he began to clench his teeth in rage. "I'll make them all pay for what they have done to us. I swear it to you, mother, I will make them all pay." He then got to his feet and wiped the tears from his face. He smiled once more as he took his hat off and placed it to his chest as he bowed towards her grave before he turned away and walked back towards the main part of town. He made his way to the hotel him and the other two were staying in, all the while mentally preparing for the next few days. The exam started in about 4 days, and he knew how quickly word spread in this village, so he was certain that there were people who knew he was here and would flock to him so as to heal them of the various wounds and ailments they had. Plus he just knew that Minato knew he was here, since when him and his squad signed in, one of the guards had left when they began to walk away, so he was obviously reporting to Minato. But he would deal with that issue when the time came for it, since he knew it was going to happen. Now he just wanted to head to the hotel room and rest, so as to prepare for tomorrow. As he walked to his hotel room, he bumped into a person he was not expecting. Sasuke Uchiha. "Hey," growled Sasuke as he turned to yell at the jackass who dared to bump into him. "Apologize. You have just rudely bumped into an Uchiha elite." "Uchiha elite, huh?" said Naruto with a chuckle, since hearing that was fairly humorous to him. He turned around to face Sasuke face to face, "But let's be honest here, you only got that title through process of elimination." Sasuke saw Naruto and fell backwards in fear, since he remembered what happened the last time they met unexpectedly. His hands went instinctively to where his balls once were, and as he did, the memory of the pain inflicted upon his person by the man before him made him begin to sweat heavily. I'm surprised that I bumped into you of all people here. But then again, you live in this village, so it's not too surprising when you think about it. Yet this presents a perfect opportunity for you, believe it or not. What do you want from me? Said Sasuke nervously. For most of his life, he had been told that he was elite by many people, including his father. Yet when his clan was killed by Itachi, he learned that he was not as good as him, and he needed to train hard to bridge the gap if he ever wanted to avenge his clan in the future. But then he had faced Naruto, who easily beat him, maimed him by removing his balls, and shattered his dreams of avenging his clan by showing him proof of Itachi's demise. Sasuke may be many things, with arrogant as well as narcissistic being on top of the list, but suicidal was not one of those things. He knew that as he had no way in hell to defeat Naruto, and wasn't going to even try. He already lost his literal balls, so he didn't want to lose anything else of his. Simply to return to you what I took, said Naruto with a smirk as he whipped out a glass vial in his hand. It was clear, yet filled with a clearish yellow liquid with two oval testicles floating in it. What? Said Sasuke in shock, since he was not expecting that response. Like I said, I want to give these back to you. Oh, said Sasuke, since in all honesty he didn't know what to say in this situation. But let's back up a bit here, said Naruto with a smile on his face that was not friendly in the slightest. While I wish to give this to you, these are not free in the slightest. What I hold in my hands is your literal future, since without these you will be the last of the Uchiha to exist. What do you want? Growled Sasuke. He wanted to do nothing more than to take his balls back via force, but he just couldn't risk it with so much on the line. To give you the same chance that I did to be great and known throughout the elemental countries, said Naruto as he twirled his ken a bit before he slammed it down in front of him and leaned on it with both hands as he smirked at Sasuke. It may seem hard to believe, but I was born from nothing into nothing. I had not a cent to my name and lost my mother when I was 5, so I had no one to raise me. Yet even with the entire world against me, I fought on and conquered every challenge that came my way. You have done nothing more than coast off of the name of your clan for as long as you have been alive, and even though they are dead you continue to drag their name through the mud with your actions. So my price, which is non-negotiable by the way, is quite simple. I want everything of value that you clan has. All the money in your accounts, anything of value sold, and the cash added to my fee. You are insane if you think I am going to pay that, shouted Sasuke. He was seriously pissed that Naruto had made such a demand of him of all things. True, said Naruto as he twirled his cane and held it behind his back with both hands, but you don't really have a choice in the matter. Look at it this way, you can either be the richest Uchiha in existence, but also the last. Or you can be the poorest one and rebuild your clan into the way you wish it to be. I don't care which you want, since in all fairness, I could go either way. Either I get paid or I get to live with the knowledge that I managed to make the Uchiha clan go extinct, and that is quite a claim to make in this world. So pay me what I want, and I will restore your testicles back the way they were before I took them. Sasuke didn't know what to say here, since Naruto was telling the truth about the whole situation. But the silver lining to this deal is that you get to keep your clan houses as well as all the jutsu your family has, since unlike your clan I don't steal the hard work of others using those eyes of yours. You can literally say that when you yourself have stolen my brother's eyes. Actually I can, said Naruto with a chuckle, since in all honesty I only use these eyes when I perform surgery, since they allow me to see things that the untrained eye is incapable of doing. Sure, I stole his eyes, but at least I am using them for a good cause instead of copying other styles. But to bring this point home, this is a one-time offer, and if you choose not to pay what I demand for your ability to sire the next generation, then I will destroy these right here in front of you so that you can watch your family weep at your foolishness. And how am I to know that you would do as you said if I pay you? I am appalled, sir, said Naruto as he held his chest in mock pain. I am a doctor, and as such I take my job very seriously. To state otherwise is quite a mistake, and as such I am tempted to say to hell with my offer, and destroy your balls here and now. Wait! Shouted Sasuke in worry that Naruto would follow through with his threat. I'll pay you what you ask. So it is a deal then? Asked Naruto with a smirk as he held out his hand in an open palm. Fei pulled out a scroll that he unrolled, and Sasuke saw that it was blank. Naruto pulled out a small vial of blood that he crushed in his fingers, and then placed his bloody hand on it. The blood left his hand and swirled onto the scroll to form a contract that went as stated word for word. If you agree, then simply sign here. Do you have a pen to sign it? Asked Sasuke, who fairly freaked out so see a contract made out of the blood of someone. Oh yes, said Naruto as he pulled one out, right here. The contract states the deal as I have said it, but be warned that when the due date comes and payment is not delivered your life is mine to do as I wish. And allow me to paint exactly how that would go. I will once again remove your balls, this time destroying them so there is no chance to get them back. Then I will remove your eyes, slash up your face in a manner that will scar you beyond recognition. Then I will give you the most painful sex change that has ever happened in the history of the operation. You will get to live the rest of your life as an abnormally ugly woman for the rest of your life, and I get to laugh about it since all you had to do was pay what was owed in full. I'll pay, said Sasuke as the color in his face disappeared as he heard what Naruto would do if he didn't pay. He then took the pen offered, and signed his name on the line where it was supposed to go. Once he signed, Naruto made it disappear in a sleight of hand, and with a click of his fingers made the door to his operating room appear beside them. Well then, if you would kindly step through this door we can get this whole operation done within 15 minutes. Then you will have until the end of the Chunin exams to pay me in full. And as he stated he replaced Sasuke's balls within 15 minutes before he sent Sasuke on his way. Naruto continued on his own way back to his hotel room with a smirk on his face as he did. Naruto had done as he had said he would, which was to restore Sasuke's balls back to the way they were before he took them from him back in Wave, and he had done exactly that. What he never mentioned to Sasuke was the simple fact that he was sterile from birth, and replacing his balls would not help him sire children in the future. Sure, Naruto could have easily fixed it, but he wouldn't on the account of the hell Sasuke put him through as a child. The asshole had literally used his freshly awakened Sharingan against him and had tested its genjutsu abilities on him to feel such great sorrow at the loss of his mother that he had taken up a broken piece of glass and nearly killed himself with it. Naruto looked back on that day and still wondered what had broken him free from that illusion so that he still lived, but in all honesty he was just glad to be alive today. Naruto could only laugh at the fact that Sasuke had just signed away his fortune so easily, and the smirk was still on his face as he smacked into someone since he was not paying full attention to where he was going. Sorry about that, stated Naruto as he took his hat off and placed it on his chest as he respectfully bowed in apology. My mind was elsewhere at the moment. No problems, young man, said the voice of an older male, but then the voice turned to one of a bit of surprise. Wait a minute, are you the one called the Surgeon of Death throughout the lands? Why yes, I am, said Naruto as he placed his hat back on his head, and you would be. Holy shit. Naruto couldn't help but shout that last bit since in all honesty he had not expected to bump into this person out of all people. Standing before him was none other than Drea the Sannin. Woo there kid, said Drea with a bit of a nervous chuckle. He had dealt with fanatical fans of his Ika books in the past, and if this ended up like any of those other times then he would have to make a quick run for it since he was not going to end up tied up in some random guy's basement again. He broke free of course, but dear Kami, that day still haunted him still. Sorry about that, said Naruto as he rubbed the back of his head sheepishly since it was a bit embarrassing to do that. It's just a surprise to see you of all people here. I am a fan of your book, and if it is not too much to ask would you please sign my copy? Sure thing kid, said Drea with a smirk of his own now adorning his face since he liked to meet his fans who wanted his autograph for his work. He whipped out his pen to sign what he assumed was yet another Ika book, but he stopped cold when he saw what was actually presented. Instead of an Ika book there was a fairly well-kept copy of his first book, The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. This is my favorite book, said Naruto proudly. My mother would read it to me every night, and she even named me Naruto after the main character. She said she did so since she knew that I would make a name for myself in the future, and damn was she right about that. Drea took the book from Naruto's hands and began to cry anime tears. This was his first book he ever wrote, but it never sold well, and because of that he went on to write Ika instead, which sold far better. To finally meet someone who appreciated his first published book was heartwarming to him. He signed it with a smile on his face, which then Naruto took it back and thanked him for it. "Thank you very much," said Naruto before he sent the book away, "and as a proper token of my appreciation of this amazing book, I am offering you the one-time offer at a major discount of any surgery of your choice that I can perform. I would say free, but materials cost money, and I can't get some of them for free." "Well, that is nice of you, kid," said Drea, "but I don't really." "Wait a sec. What is on your mind, my good man?" asked Naruto with a grin on his face. "Well, there is one thing I wish to ask about, but I feel kind of embarrassed to ask about it." "Ah," said Naruto with a chuckle, "I know exactly what it is that you wish for. And there is no need to feel ashamed about it. Many a man has come to me to fix that very problem, and I have done so to all who pay me what is owed. Now I charge my how much I need to enhance it, so just how much do you want it to grow?" "Wait," asked Drea in surprise since he didn't actually expect Naruto to say he could fix it. "You can make it bigger." "Why, yes I can," said Naruto with a click of his finger. The door to his operating room once again appeared next to him. "There are a few tests that need to be run to determine the maximum length your body can handle, but the end results are well liked." "How much will this cost me?" "Like I said, it depends on the change in length, but you are getting a steep discount, so there is no need to fret there. Now follow me, and I can perform the few tests needed to get you on your way to pleasing the ladies." Drea could only cry even more anime tears as he heard those words and made his way through the door as asked. What neither of them were aware of was that they were being watched by someone from the rooftops. This person was none other than Kushina Izumaki herself, since the boy piqued her curiosity. Her daughter had told her about what had happened on the bridge in Wave, and how he had called her his sister, which made no sense since Naruto was an only child. Kushina had been in agreement in thinking the same way as Minato, with the logic of the man just trying to mess with her by saying that. But now the boy was here, and her thoughts changed as she had seen him walking the streets by himself. She saw him go to the grave of a woman who he called his mother and saw as the tears flowed from his eyes. And the more she observed the boy, the more she could not deny his similarities to Minato in a sense. So soon she would seek the boy out herself and get the answers to these questions that were forming in her head. Chapter 4: An Abnormal Day of Healing. Naruto took the time to knock Drea out once he entered his operating room, and then used a room to strip him of all his clothes. He was a professional after all, and he was not one to shy away from a male's naked body. So while Drea was out, he took a blood sample measurements of his body, as well as his penis length, girth, and shape. Once he had all the information that he needed to know, he got the materials he needed to mix together to make the concoction that would enhance a man's penis size depending on what they wanted. Drea had stated that he wanted his penis to become as big as physically possible, and he would do just that since the man was a paying customer and he was a fan of his book. His body was capable of growing up to at least 10.5 inches in length with the girth that was the size of a soda can. So once the mixture was complete, he placed it into a syringe and held Drea's penis before he stabbed it into the vein. As he pushed the plunger down, the size slowly grew as well until it reached the maximum amount that he was able to. Now that all was done, he replaced Drea's clothes back onto his body before he took out a pill that he snapped under his nose. Doing so caused Drea to wake up with a start. "Holy crap," said Drea in surprise. But then again, he had not expected to be knocked out like he had been, so it was understandable. "Rise and shine, sleeping beauty," said Naruto with a chuckle. "The operation was a success." "Already?" asked Drea with a start as his hands went to his pants to feel his now enlarged appendage. "Well, hot damn. You truly work miracles, as they say you do." "Well, I do the best I can," said Naruto with a smile and a shrug. "But now if you would be so kind as to pay me what is owed." Naruto then handed him a slip of paper that had the bill on it. Drea took one look at it before he pulled out his wallet and handed Naruto the amount in full. This operation had been worth every cent. "Now to find myself a date and get me some sweet loving," said Drea with a laugh as his confidence was boosted exponentially with the increase of his size. "I would advise against that," said Naruto with a shake of his head. "Your body needs to adjust to the growth in size. If you were to try and do what you planned to do, too much blood would flow into your genitals, and you would faint due to it." "Wait a minute," said Drea in shock. so you are saying that you made it bigger, but I can't use it. For the next several days at least, said Naruto as he walked over to his desk and grabbed 2 small bags with pills. Now before you go, take these. What are these? Asked Drea as he took the drugs. Pills to help you, said Naruto with a smirk. The red ones will help regulate your blood flow until it happens naturally. The blue ones are essentially so you don't pop a stiffy until your body adapts. Why would you give me those ones? Naruto simply raised an eyebrow with a really look on his face. Right, said Drea with a slight laugh, dumb question. Yet before you go, I have a question for you, asked Naruto as he pulled out his cane and leaned on it. Okay, said Drea as he folded his arms. Shoot. Do you know of a cloning technique that I can use? Why would you ask me that? Asked Drea with a confused look on his face. In my line of work, said Naruto with a sigh since he was speaking truthfully about the situation, I am in high demand to help heal so many people. The problem with that is that I am only one man, and so I have to go out and gather materials, and when I do that I can't heal people while I get the necessary materials. I tried using a cloning technique of my own that uses my bloodline, but since it is one made of my blood, the drawback to it is that I need the same amount of blood as a normal human being. I have been able to collect blood to do it, but it is fairly impractical in use. So I thought to ask you since you have been around, and would most likely know one or two I could use. I assure you that it is not for anything nefarious, it's just so I can be in 2 places at once so that I can gather and heal at the same time. Well, said Drea as he thought about it for a bit. He knew of one specific clone jutsu, but it was one used solely by those who resided in Konoha, and even then it was used by their strongest members at that. Now at first he was against telling Naruto about it, but Naruto did make a good point about how it would aid him in his medical practice. I do know of one that would help you. Now while I am capable of teaching it to you, I want your word that you will not use it against the shinobi of our village in any way. You have my word as the surgeon of death, said Naruto seriously. I only wish to use it to gather the materials I need to heal while still healing. I am a neutral party to all shinobi matters, so I only defend against those who attack me and do not seek out opponents to fight. I am a doctor, not a shinobi. Well then, said Drea. He showed Naruto the proper hand signs to activate the shadow clone jutsu, which Naruto copied and used himself. This put a smile on his face since he was being completely honest about his intentions for the jutsu, and with that he summoned a door and sent the clone he made through it to pay a visit to one of his friends he bought materials from. Now that he had a building, he could order large quantities to be delivered to said building. I thank you, said Naruto, as he held his hand out to shake Drea's hand. With this I will be able to heal so many more people. You are welcome, said Drea as he saw Naruto summon up another door that led back to the village. But while we are on the subject, is there any way that I could convince you to join our village? Ha! Laughed Naruto. He knew that there would be a few attempts to try and get him to settle down in the village. 1 out of 3 it seems. 1 out of 3. Asked Drea with a quizzical look on his face since that was quite the odd thing to hear out of the blue. Well, said Naruto, as he thought about it for a second. Drea may be a spy master for the village of Konoha, but there was no real harm in explaining what he meant since it wasn't really crucial or even vital information. Allow me to explain a bit. Every time I enter any of the major villages, or sometimes even when I enter a minor one, the people there try no less than 3 times to try and get me to join up and set up shop there. But each time I decline their offers, and believe me when I say that they offer me a lot to stay. But why don't you settle down? Asked Drea. It would make life easier for you since you would be safer in a village than on the road as a nomad. Medicine is a universal thing, said Naruto as he shook his head, and as such it is not limited to one place. I am a one-of-a-kind doctor who heals all who pay me, and since I am wandering about as a nomad, my client list is far larger. Just how much money do you make? Asked Drea, if you don't mind me asking you. More than I could possibly spend in one lifetime, said Naruto simply. This was true, since he had so many clients who paid, and even though there were those he helped for free out of the kindness of his heart, albeit with threats of harm if they ever tell people about it due to the act that he wanted to maintain his image, he still made so much. But he did not use most of that money for himself. He had 4 funds that he kept separate. One was used to buy ingredients as well as materials he needed to make his medicine. The second was the smallest, which he used for his own needs, which he simplified to food and clothes. He grew up poor and did not need much since that was how he was raised. The third was in an account that he left alone and only added to bit by bit. This one was saved for when he started a family in the future, since raising one took money. The last one was the largest that he had under his name. The vast majority of the money he made was used to fund 14 different orphanages that were all over the elemental countries. He knew how it was to be without parents, and so he used his money to make sure those orphans got the things they needed, as well as free healthcare as they lived there. He had been doing this for the past 3 years, with each of them getting a renovation since they were in need of repairs, as well as eliminating the person in charge since they were all greedy assholes who were embezzling the money meant to help the children into their own accounts. Naruto found various trustworthy people to run the places, and the children were happy. To them he was the big brother who they always wanted. While it was true that they may be orphans, with Naruto around they all truly felt as though they had family. "But I have taken more than enough of your time," said Naruto, as he opened the door and gestured Drea to leave, "and I must prepare myself for tomorrow." "What's happening tomorrow?" "Word spreads fast in this village," said Naruto simply, "so I will set up a small booth and help those who pay me. That's pretty much my day all tomorrow." "Well," said Drea with a smirk on his face. He was happy about the enhancement he had done to himself. He couldn't wait until he was able to get him some once these few days were up and his body adapted. He might just try his luck and go for Tsunade like old times. Who knows, she might just give in once she saw what he was now packing. Ah, what a day that would be. You have fun with that. Good luck. You too, said Naruto as he held out his hand to shake Drea's. Drea shook his hand and then left through the door. Naruto followed suit and sent the door away as he once more set out towards his hotel room. He stopped halfway when the memories of his clone flooded his mind. He didn't know that he would inherit the memories of the clone, since it was not the case with the blood clones he made. But in all honesty it only helped in the long run. But eventually he made his way to his room. This time he had one to himself while Kuretsuchi and Haku shared one. As he was brewing himself a cup of tea, he was unaware of a shinobi that entered the room under his own. This shinobi was one of Danzo's root forces, one that was a member of the Yamanaka clan. He had his orders, which were absolute. He was under the orders to wait for it to get late in the night, and when Naruto was at his most vulnerable, infiltrate his mind and implant the suggestions to settle down in the village of Konoha. The root shinobi got comfortable as he sat in his chair, as he patiently waited for the time when he would complete his order. Several hours later, Naruto was up, and about late in the night. He had taken one of his anti-sleep deprivation pills to keep himself awake. He was in the process of developing a concoction that he planned to use in future, and he was having a breakthrough, so he didn't want to sleep and lose it. He had just finished writing down how to replicate the process for the future when out of nowhere he heard a knock on his door. At first he thought it was Haku, but that was unlikely since he had asked her to stay away while in this village. He had explained that this village, mainly Minato, would use any if any tactic to force him to remain within the village. So while here they were simply squad mates. So with his curiosity piqued, he made his way to the door and opened it up to see who it was. H would have looked through a peephole first, but hotel rooms don't have one, so he simply prepared the wires in his glove just on the off chance that this was an abduction attempt of some sort. But to his utmost surprise, it was not an ambush or an attack of any kind. In fact, the person standing there was the absolute last person he expected to see in this given situation. Standing there was the wife of Minato Namikaze, Kushina Uzumaki. "Hello there," she said with a kind voice to try and ease the tension. "Sorry," said Naruto as the initial shock faded away, "but if you are here for medical purposes you will have to wait until tomorrow. I'll have everything prepared by then." "I didn't come for medical reasons," said Kushina with a slight wave of her hand. "Now that I have gotten a good look at you I can see you are in peak health," said Naruto, "but if you are not here for medical purposes why are you here? May I come in?" "Well sure," said Naruto as he waved her in and closed the door behind him. "Please tell me that this isn't a late-night booty call," Because I am flattered, but I'm already taken. Kushina stopped mid-step for a second before she began to laugh at the random response. No, that is not the reason I have come, said Kushina as she stopped laughing. I would also like to state that I am a married woman. You think that changes things, said Naruto with a sigh. I have had a few offers from married women who have offered themselves as payment for my services or trying to get me to join their village. And let me guess, chuckled Kushina. She was a mother who understood hormones, and since this man was most likely 16 years old, he was probably the type of guy to accept pussy thrown at him if offered. You went along with it, and still did not join. No, on all accounts, said Naruto as he sat down in one of the chairs in his room, since my mind is used more for science than the pleasures of the flesh. Don't get me wrong, I am no virgin. I am just not a whore, nor will I accept sex as a payment since it does not pay the bills or for materials. But enough about that, why are you here? Truthfully, said Kushina with a serious face, simple curiosity alone. Curious as to what exactly? Asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Your parents? Asked Kushina, as he looked the young man in the eye to ensure that he spoke the truth. Who were they? Why do you wish to know who my parents were? Asked Naruto with a bit of a glare. For some reason he did not like where this conversation was going. You called my daughter your sister in Wave when she and her squad were there for a mission. I want to know why. Is that all this is about? Said Naruto as he began to laugh hard. Because I called her that? I only said that to get her off guard, and it worked. Why did you need her off guard? Asked Kushina. Her squad had nearly killed my friends, said Naruto simply, so I distracted them long enough to get them to safety. But still, said Kushina, who knew deep in her gut that there was more to this story than what was being told. Who were your parents? I only ever knew my mother, said Naruto sadly. Her name was Mocha. She had no family other than me, and she died when I was only 5. She meant everything to me, and it nearly destroyed me when she passed away, so a simple word of warning, never disrespect her in my presence. I mean no disrespect, said Kushina, and I am sorry to hear that your mother passed on so soon. But who was your father? To be honest, said Naruto with a shake of his head, I don't know who he is. He abandoned us to fend for ourselves, and I never met him in my life. That must have been hard on such a young man like yourself, said Kushina in a motherly tone with sympathy, since she actually cared. If it is any consolation, my homeland as well as the vast majority of my clan was killed off in the Second Shinobi War. So I know how it feels to lose family. I know that you are trying to be sympathetic, said Naruto with a sigh, but your clan was well known for their proficiency in seals and their strength. I was the son of an unknown man, and a woman who people don't even know. Her tombstone has nothing more than the date of death along with her name. People will remember your family for years, and yet no one will remember mine. So please don't compare us since we are not alike. Well, I am sorry if I hit a sour note, started Kushina before she felt a pressure send a cold shiver up her spine. You came to my room in the middle of the night, and demand to know who my parents were, growled Naruto. Family was a tender subject to him, and to be reminded that he no longer had one only infuriated him. For what? To mock me? To do as so many have in my youth, and insult me for being worthless? I worked my ass off to get where I am today with my infamous reputation. I had no clan name to coast off of, and I made a name for myself. I meant no disrespect with my inquiry, said Kushina as she began to worry that Naruto would attack her out of the blue. Well, you have, said Naruto simply as he pointed to the door. Now leave me be. And warn your daughter that when we fight in these exams, I will hold nothing back. Those were the last words Kushina heard before the door was shut in her face. She could only stand there for a bit and wonder about the information that was just told to her. The main thing about him having an apparent vendetta against her daughter, as well as the fact he was participating in the exams, was something that shocked her. If this was the case, she needed to make sure that her daughter was prepared to fight against him, and so she set out to perform some intense last-minute training with her daughter. As she left, Naruto could only chuckle to himself since that had worked better than he had thought. He was not really pissed about what had been said. He just wanted Kushina to leave so as to end the conversation before she pried too deep into his history. He knew exactly who his father was, and he would make him pay dearly in the end. He took a few steps so as to pack up his tools as well as his books, but his body fell forward as his mind went blank. Mindscape. Naruto woke up with a headache. When he opened his eyes, he saw a massive hospital before him, and as he saw it, he knew exactly where he was. Faust had always told him about organizing one's mind in a familiar setting, and a hospital was the place he was most familiar with. He knew the exact reason he was in his mind, and it only pissed him off immensely as he knew the reason. He always feared that someone would fuck with his mind like Ino did years ago in his youth, but unfortunately he had no means to make himself immune to the Yamanaka family jutsu. He had tried to find a means, and yet, all he was able to do was develop a seal that would slow down the process so that he could expel the intruder of his mind out of it. While he was no master of sealing like the Uzumaki, he got by with what little he could do. He was strong-willed, this he had learned in time, so he was capable of doing so. His memories were represented as files like in any hospital that were located underground under lock and key, and he had the various rooms filled with the usual medical equipment, but were void of anything vital. He saw as a portion of the hospital's lights flickered out for a bit before the lights burned out. That was where the intruder was located, and his eyes turned to ones filled with rage as he summoned up a lever on the wall and pulled it hard. As he did, an alarm sounded throughout the facility, and the sprinklers activated. But the thing about these sprinklers was that they were not spraying water. It was blood. The intruder to his mind had spent what felt like hours searching for the location of Naruto's memories so as to complete his mission when he heard the alarm go off. This surprised him since he shouldn't have known that his mind was being invaded at all. But what made it worse was the fact that the sprinklers sprayed blood instead of water. He became drenched in the thick liquid, and as he became stuck in place for a reason that he was not able to understand. So, said Naruto, who appeared near the man, and with a click of his fingers the lights returned to the area. This is the man who invaded my mind. How is this possible? Growled the man emotionlessly. You should not be here. Well, this is my mind, said Naruto, with a growl of his own. He had a few encounters with shinobi who wore masks like this one before, and all he could get out of them was they were a member of Root and nothing else. So you should have thought of that before you invaded it. You will serve my master, said the man, you have no choice in the matter. I would try and get information out of you, said Naruto as he pulled the mask off the man's face. And like all the other Root shinobi he had faced over the years, he was pale-faced and devoid of emotion. And just like the rest of them, he most likely had a seal on him to keep him from talking and divulging information. But it would be for nothing. Tell whoever your master is that I serve no man, and I never will. Naruto then used the blood surrounding him to form the curved blade on the edge of his cane to make a scythe. He then quickly decapitated the man whose body dissolved once dead. Naruto growled as he snapped his fingers, which made all the blood disappear so that the place was clean as it was before all this happened. With a sigh, he quickly vanished from his own mind since his work was done and the intruder was banished from his mind. The next day, Naruto had woken up early to get up and go find a good spot to set up his temporary shop. And since he had been born here, he knew exactly where he wanted to go put it, which was dead center in the village square, in plain view of anyone and everyone who came this way. He sat there for about 40 minutes before he got his first customer. The process was quite simple. The customer would talk to him about their problem they needed medical help for, and then depending on what was ailing them, Naruto would hand them the proper paperwork which they would then fill out. The paperwork helped to identify the exact problem they had, and then he would sign off on it and place the price in the box left blank for that exact reason. The first customer came to him since he had a severed muscle in his arm so that he could no longer use it. Naruto showed him the price, which he was paid, and the customer left happy that he was able to use both arms again. To be honest, the man was lucky since healing a severed muscle was cheaper than reattaching a severed limb. He could do it easily, but it still cost more. Once the man left, more people showed up to get aid such as he had. And within a few hours there was a crowd of people who appeared to fill out the proper paperwork. Out of all the people who came to see him this day, only 3 people really stood out. The first was Anko Mitarashi, the former student to the traitorous Sannin known as Orochimaru. So I hear that you are the infamous surgeon of death, she said as she appeared while eating a stick of dango. That I am, said Naruto with a chuckle. He had heard this said to him multiple times for years, as well as at least a dozen times today alone. So what exactly can I help you with today? Well, I need help with a bit of a personal matter, said Anko sheepishly as she rubbed the back of her head. So what STD do you want me to eliminate, said Naruto with a smirk. He saw Anko look shocked as she heard him ask that before she began to growl. I don't have an STD. She shouted in anger. Well, that's good to know, said Naruto with a smirk. Do you hear that, men? She is clean. Naruto heard men in the crowd begin to laugh as he said that since it was funny. But as they laughed, it only made Anko angry that she was being made fun of as well as being made out as some sort of whore. I'll kill you for that, shouted Anko in feminine rage. Greater people have tried, said Naruto simply. But all kidding aside, what can I do for you? Well, I hear you perform what many consider miracles, said Anko with a bit of a sad tone. And to be honest, I have been trying to find someone who could help me for years and yet they could not. So I'm desperate at this point. Please tell me what is ailing you, and I'll see what I can do to help you. When I was younger, my old teacher placed one of his curse seals on my body. So you want to see if I can remove it? Asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow as he heard this. Well, show me the mark, and I'll tell you what I can do. Anko leaned her head over and pulled her coat down a bit to show the mark on her neck. Naruto placed a finger on it as he examined it closely. The chakra that was in his fingertips showed him enough to understand exactly what it was. Naruto looked for about a good minute before he pulled out one of his personal books he had filled with notes. So can you do anything about it? Asked Anko hopefully. She truly wanted nothing more than to be rid of this accursed seal once and for all. All the hatred and ridicule were starting to leave their mark on her person. Actually I can, said Naruto as he closed his notebook and sent it away for later. Wait a minute, said Anko in surprise. To be honest, she didn't really believe that he would be able to help her. Did you just say that you could help? Yeah, said Naruto simple with a straight face. In my career as a doctor, I have healed 11 different people with various curses on their person. Out of all of them, I only ever lost one, but that was because the curse was far more complex than I expected. Yours is not even that complex to understand, and so I can easily remove it. But I will need 3 things from you. Anything, said Anko as she hopped in place all giddy like. I need about a pint of your blood, a month to prepare, and the money to pay for the operation. Whatever the price, she said happily, I'll eagerly pay. Well, you are lucky that I am not an asshole who would abuse that fact, said Naruto as he pulled out his book of prices. He flipped through the book and showed her the exact price that would be due once the operation was complete. She saw that it was a bit steep, but she could afford it since her job paid so very well. Naruto had her sit in a chair so that he could poke her vein with a needle so as to extract the blood he needed. Once he gathered it up, he placed it into a small metallic case and walked through his door so as to put it in the freezer along with the rest of the blood. She hugged him hard after he came back out, and then left to do her own thing for the day. The second person, or people he should say, since there were 2 of them, who were ones he remembered, were 2 people he never thought he would see in person. Naruto had been in the process of handing some pills to an older man who had some erectile problems when out of the blue 2 people, a young man as well as a young woman, had appeared out of nowhere and shoved her out of the way. They were both wearing what one would consider crimson-colored regal clothes. Naruto was already getting a bit of a headache from just their arrogant attitude alone. The man had short-cut hair, but the thing that people were drawn to was the fact that his left eye was scarred from what seemed to have been a fire jutsu of some sort. The female had her hair tied up via 2 needles, and to be honest, out of the 2 of them she was obviously the more arrogant one. Naruto stood up and helped the man to his feet before he handed him the pills that were prescribed to him. The 2 noble people glared as he ignored them to help another who they deemed as a filthy commoner. Hello, said the woman as she stood there arrogantly. If you haven't noticed, said Naruto as he finally turned around to acknowledge them, there is a line. So if you are here for medical help you must wait your turn. Do you have any idea who we are? Asked the man with a growl. Not one clue, said Naruto truthfully since he had never seen them before. Such arrogance, said the woman in a rude manner, since everyone in Fire Country should know who they were. They were a family that was just below the Fire Daio and their family in hierarchy. Everyone knows who we are. I don't, said Naruto with a shrug of his shoulders. We are Zuko and Azula of the kind noble family, said the now named Azula. Wait a minute, said Naruto as he froze in place when he heard those names. What were your names again? Azula and Zuko kind. In that moment, it took all the self-control he possibly had to remain calm and quell the rage that was inside of him. He had remembered those names with crystal clarity from his mother's journal. These two were his aunt and uncle. The same aunt and uncle who made his mother's childhood a harsh one since she did not see the world through the same arrogant eyes as their family did. The journal had gone into great detail of the bullying that they had inflicted upon her, with Zuko breaking the things she cherished and Azula tormenting her on an emotional level to make her feel worthless. Every fiber of his being was telling him to tear them to pieces and make them suffer as they had done to his mother when she was no more than a teenager, but if he did that he would be a wanted man in the bingo books for killing such a noble family. If he was going to get back at them for what they had done, he would do so in his own way that no one would be able to backtrack to him. Noble or not, said Naruto simply since he didn't want his voice laced with rage of any sort, there is still a line ahead of you. Fine, sighed Azula angrily, how much to skip the wait? It is not about the money, said Naruto simply, as he stood firm, it's about the principle of the matter. You can't bribe your way here. Do you not understand how nobility works, you worthless commoner? Screamed Azula as Zuko held her back so she wouldn't do something stupid as she was known to do against those who piss her off. Several maids and butlers within their home had been the subject of such cruelty, so he knew what she was capable of. Worthless commoner, said Naruto as he got into her face. He was not scared of her, nor would he ever be. Well, that's rich coming from the nobles who came to seek my aid. You think that you are better than the rest of us, but the reality is that we all function the same. We all have the same weaknesses and money cannot change that. So if all you came to do was insult me, then leave. Or else get your noble bitch ass to the end of the fucking line and wait like the rest of these people. At this point Zuko let Azula go since Naruto had insulted him as well, and he actually wanted Azula to fuck him up at this point. She pulled out a dagger to stab him, since she knew that her family had the money and the influence to get away with it. This wasn't the first time she had done this, nor would it be the last. Yet when she went to stab him in the head for his insolence, Naruto simply held his hand up to block the blade. It stabbed through his palm, to which he then yanked it out of her grasp. You seem agitated, said Naruto with a straight face. With a sleight of hand, he whipped out a syringe filled with a powerful sedative. He simply stabbed her in the arm with it, and it took immediate effect for it to work since she fell over unconscious. You filthy, started Zuko before he stopped mid-sentence. Naruto had another syringe in his hand with the intent to use it if he got violent. Take your sister and wait like everyone else, said Naruto simply. Zuko simply nodded in shock that he was being threatened like this. He picked his sister up and walked back to the end of the line as Naruto told him. Naruto waited a minute to make sure they did before he took the handle of the dagger in hand and pulled it out. Once the wound was no longer plugged up with the dagger, his blood retracted back into the wound and reformed the skin so that there was no visible damage done to it. His blood ability helped him to heal from such things perfectly like this, and it was useful to say the least. Zuko though, was back at the front of the line within 5 minutes though, and it made Naruto sigh to see that his arrogance was like this. What did I just say all of 5 minutes ago? Growled Naruto. You said that I couldn't bribe you, said Zuko haughtily, so I bribed the rest of these commoners to skip past them instead. Naruto leaned his head a bit and saw a few people counting some money in their hands. Fucking smartass, said Naruto under his breath. Alright then, what can I do for you? We came to this village to hire Tsunade for her medical knowledge, said Zuko, but we happened to hear that you were here and decided to hire you instead since your abilities in the medical field are far superior to hers. And yet you just called me a filthy commoner not 5 minutes ago, said Naruto simply, but I'm not going to argue with you. What do you need? Our father is gravely ill, said Zuko as he handed Naruto a scroll with the insignia of the Kind family, which was a black fire. And he needs a heart transplant if he is going to live. So I take it that you have the donor heart ready to be transplanted, asked Naruto. That we do indeed, said Zuko. The heart had come from one of their butlers, one their father had hired for this exact purpose since he knew he would need fresh organs of some sort. The young man had no family other than his sick elderly mother, and he was happy to serve what he assumed was a good man since the job paid well and the money he earned he sent home to take care of her. The man worked there for 2 months before he was killed and his organs harvested. And to make sure there were no loose ends, their father had hired a shady man to kill the woman so that no one would look for her son. Okay then, said Naruto as he opened the scroll. It was an official invitation to their home, in the fire capital. I can be there in at least a week. We need you sooner than that. Well, tough shit, said Naruto. I have things I have planned to do, so that is the earliest I can help you. Then we shall hire Tsunade instead. Go right ahead, said Naruto with a shrug, but that will take even longer. From what I have been able to hear from all the people who I have helped, she is not even in the village. She is on one of her gambling tours, as people call it, and won't be back for a few weeks since she just left a few days ago. So even if you were going to hire her, then all that would happen is that she would get a message requesting her aid and then most likely ignore it since, from what I hear, she does not like her gambling time to be interrupted. So by all means go right ahead and hire her. Fine, said Zuko through strained teeth. We expect you as soon as possible. I'll be there, said Naruto, but have my money ready or else there will be no operation. I have dealt with Welchers before, and I am familiar with how to deal with them. This time Zuko left for good since their business was done. And then Naruto once again helped those who came to him for medical aid. And to be honest, the money that they were bribed with helped their fees. Nothing else happened as the day went by, and it was only when he was packing everything up that he met another person, who he had expected to see. It was Minato Namikaze himself, standing there with a grin on his face. So you are the infamous surgeon of death I have heard so much about in the last couple of years, said Minato with a smirk. He had Danzo send one of his root shinobi to alter Naruto's mind so that, when he himself arrived to offer him a chance to join their village, that Naruto would jump at the chance eagerly. He had heard nothing back from the root shinobi, but since Naruto was no Yamanaka nor was he proficient in seals, he would not be able to counter a mental attack. And you are the infamous Yellow Flash Minato Namikaze, said Naruto as he had yet to turn around. He was doing inventory to make sure he had everything and to see exactly what he needed to order more of. So what brings you here now? If you are here, or medical purposes, then you will have to wait until tomorrow since I am closed for the moment. No, I am not in need of medical aid, said Minato with a wave of his hand. I am here to personally offer you the chance at joining our village. I even have the paperwork with me so that we can get that out of the way here and now. No, said Naruto. He didn't stop with his inventory for even a second as he said that, since he knew exactly what he wanted to say as a response. Well then, all I need is your signature, he said Minato on autopilot before Naruto's response finally sunk in. What? I said no. Naruto then closed his book since he was done with inventory and began to carefully pack up his gear. How is this possible? Said Minato to himself, since the root shinobi should have been successful. How is what possible? Asked Naruto as he placed the last bit of equipment. Nothing, said Minato to shut down that train of thought before it got too deep. But is there anything that Konoha could offer you to have you stay and set up shop within this village? We are considered the strongest out of all 5 major villages. Stop preaching to me, said Naruto as he finally turned around to face the man and look him in the eye. Your village has nothing more than the other major villages, and they have all tried to get me to settle down within it as well. But I prefer to remain a nomad and heal all who pay me to do so. But let's just stop all that and talk man to man, me and you. And just what exactly do you mean by that? Asked Minato with a serious look on his face. I know exactly who you are, said Naruto with a glare towards the man who was responsible for so much of his pain. And it humors me greatly to see the same man who wouldn't even acknowledge my existence years ago now is trying so very hard to settle down in a village that I have nothing but the worst of memories of. So you know the truth then, said Minato with a growl. He had hoped that Naruto would never learn about their relationship to each other. And now he would have to use a Yamanaka to erase that knowledge from his mind once Naruto was part of their village. Hard not to know, said Naruto as he folded his arms. I got your hair color as well as your eyes. I am a doctor and I perfectly understand genetics. So if you know the truth, asked Minato with a raised eyebrow, why would you refuse an offer to remain with family? Family, said Naruto with anger-laced words through strained teeth, you dare claim to be such a thing to me? You who abandoned us when we had nothing? You who left us to die without a shred of aid to sustain us? You who, when the woman who you had a child with came to you and begged you on her hands and knees to aid us, you slapped her and threatened not only her life, but my own as well. You were willing to harm a child to keep your secret, and now that the child who you sired has made a name for himself, do you seek him out when years ago you personally signed the paperwork to hinder his chances at doing just that in the first place? So you know the truth, huh, you little brat? Asked Minato before he whistled. From out of the blue, a dozen root shinobi appeared. Minato didn't want to go down this road, but his first plan didn't work, so he went with plan B and was just going to abduct him and brainwash him in the root facility below the village. 2 out of 3, said Naruto as he cracked his neck, so this is your grand plan? To kidnap me? Listen here, you little brat, said Minato with a glare in his eyes, you have one of 2 options here. You can either come quietly to begin your re-education to become a citizen of Konoha, or you could fight my men here, and if you manage to kill them, you will be placed within the bingo book with such a high price that even your own customers will turn on you to try and turn you in for the reward. Either way you will serve our village. Is that what you think? Asked Naruto as pulled out a bottle filled with blood, but you do not know who I am friends with. And that matters why? Asked Minato with a raised eyebrow. In my career as a doctor, I have helped many people of political influence from multiple countries. I have helped even daimyos themselves, 7 to be exact, with 3 of them being from major countries while the others are from minor. I have befriended them all, not for personal gain, but because they are nice people and I like to get to know my patients better so I know how to help them. They know who I am since they too have gotten to know me on such a personal level. Now if you did what you said you would and placed me in the bingo book, it would only really affect me in fire country since the other countries would not do it. And by doing that you are basically blacklisting me from fire country, which while it would be a bit of a financial loss, it's not the end of my career, since there will always be sick people wherever I go. That changes nothing, said Minato as he was a few seconds away from ordering his men to capture Naruto. Oh but it does, said Naruto with a sinister grin on his face, since if you try and capture me like you are doing, then I will simply kill your men and leave this village and not return. He said that, but in his mind, he knew that he would have to return to help Enko since he said he would cure her curse seal and he was a man of his word. And if I do that, then I will let the world know exactly why I left. They will know that the boy who was abandoned before he was born by his father is now being hunted by the man who abandoned him now that he made a name for himself. The world will know who you truly are, and they will not see you as a hero of Konoha, but as the monster that we both can plainly see you are hiding from the public. Minato was growling in rage at this point since he did not like to be challenged, and by someone like Naruto who he saw as a brat. This would not stand. Do you really believe that you can defeat so many of my men by yourself? Asked Minato. Funny that you should ask that, said Naruto as he raised his gloved hand and bent his fingers a bit inwards. As he did that Minato heard the clear sounds of men choking and turned around to see the root shinobi all grasping their necks as trickles of blood ran down their necks. Since I actually can and do it quite easily if I need to. What? Asked Minato in shock that his men were subdued so easily like this. How is this possible? You were trained to fight like a shinobi, the same way anyone has been trained with the exception of samurai. Said Naruto as he tightened his grip with the wires that were wrapped around their throats. But I was trained to fight like a doctor, who no one has been trained to counter in their lifetime. That gives me the edge to do such things like this. So you have 2 choices here, the first being that you leave me alone and take your men with you. Or the second is that I kill your men and disable you so that you still leave me alone. While I hate you with every fiber of my being, I won't kill you. Oh, said Minato sarcastically enraged that this brat thought that he could kill him so easily, and why the fucking sudden change of heart? Because I don't want you to die yet, said Naruto with a glare, you took everything from me. My childhood, my mother, and even tried to ruin my future when you denied me the chance to join the academy. You would have tried to hurt my daughter in rage of what I did to you. No I wouldn't, said Naruto simply, I would have hurt her since your daughter is a bitch who also added to my pain in our youth. You should be proud, since she takes after you so very well. Don't you dare insult my daughter. And don't you dare attack your son, you hypocritical narcissist. So are you gonna be a good boy and leave me the fuck alone, or should I scar you up to the point that you can't hide your shame from the world? Minato growled since this was not part of the plans at all. It should have been a simple acceptance of his offer to join the village since the root Yamanaka shinobi should have been successful in his mission. Once a member of their village, they would have used the CRA to begin a new clan of highly advanced medics with Naruto's abilities. Sure, there would have been the meeting with the other members to discuss such a matter, but with the reasoning being Naruto's blood-using ability, which he still had no idea as to how he had that ability since it was not a known one, it wouldn't have been a problem and there would have been no objections of any sort. But in the end, he begrudgingly signaled for his men to retreat, and the second he did the wires around their necks retracted. This isn't over, boy, said Minato in rage as he made to leave, for in the end, you will serve this village. You are right about this not being over, said Naruto with a smirk, since I will make you suffer as I have for years. I will take everything that you love from you, so that you know my pain. Those words caused Minato to stop and turn around to look at Naruto with a glare filled with murderous intent. Stay away from my family, he said with venom-laced words, or I will show you that there are fates worse than death, brat. Funny, said Naruto with a chuckle, I was about to say those exact words to you. Looks like I am your son after all if we think so alike. This pissed Minato off more than before, but he disappeared in a swirl of leaves before he attacked Naruto in a fit of rage. Naruto could only laugh as he saw the infamous Minato tuck tail and run like that. But his laughter was short-lived when his mind was once again breached and his body fell forward unconscious. But this time was different since there were more root shinobi involved since the plan was to capture him when he was in this state. Yet their plan was not going to go the way they wanted since Naruto had prepared for this. He knew that they would try to use a Yamanaka again, so he summoned a crow and asked for their aid in escaping if it happened again. They offered their full support as well as more when asked. A single crow had been watching Naruto all day, and the moment that they saw the Yamanaka use his mind possession jutsu they took action. A swarm of them attacked the Yamanaka and carried him towards the door to Naruto's operating room that was still summoned and then used their unique jutsu to transform his body into a flock of crows as well to bring him back to the room as well. Once inside, the door disappeared. All had gone according to plan. That's it for this part. If you enjoyed it, then like, share and subscribe for the next video as it's going to be more interesting, and also check out my other playlist. Hope you would like them too.